And so that's where the darkness really started for me, was this idea that I wasn't wanted, I wasn't accepted, and I was rejected by the most important people that kids should have, which is your mom and dad. And again, it's not bad, but that's where I identified my root darkness to happen, was because of that. Those events compounded, created this idea that Nico wasn't wanted. And so I did everything that I possibly could to gain acceptance. In my teenage years, it was substances. Prior to that, it was sports. I started wrestling when I was 7 years old, and it was amazing emotion, or amazing time to be able to cause someone else physical pain that I felt internally. There was an emotional transmutation that I could send out to other people by choking them out, slamming them on the ground. And I was getting the validation that I was seeking. I was getting acceptance for being a good athlete.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.
Hi folks, welcome back to Neff Inspiration, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stephan Neff. Today's another fantastic day because my guest today, like me, has tried quite a few coping mechanisms that were maybe not so productive in his life. And he wasn't really sure if they're good or not. So he kept going and he kept trying different things. And needless to say, he learned many lessons the hard way. And I can't wait to talk to Nico Morales, who is willing to be in the hot seat today with me and to explore what made us try to escape our reality and what made us nowadays delight in the darkness of others, because we both have gone through amazing transformations. I can't wait to hear from you. Nico, welcome to my show.
Stephan, thank you so much. I appreciate you opening up your platform to me.
Oh, it's crazy, isn't it? If you would have gone back 10 years now, and if I would have told you, hey, you're going to be a guest on my show, well, 10 years ago, I was still in the middle or just coming out of it. I wouldn't have thought, have I got a show? But would you have believed that one day you would be a podcast guest or a show guest?
No, absolutely not. It's like, why would I be talking about things? You don't talk about stuff where I'm from. You keep your mouth shut.
Ooh, very nice. Was that your youth? Was that your upbringing?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. A man.
That absolutely was my upbringing. That absolutely was my background. And that was absolutely the way that I was taught. Like, you don't talk about the bad things in life. So why would you even share your story if it's not a highlight?
Ooh, okay. Well, with that, you're fitting right into, I don't know, 95, 98, 99% of the Western population. Because nowadays it's getting a bit more accepted to break taboos. But still, there are so many people who are cringing out there with the thought of being in your shoes. But you're doing it because you're now living in the light. Tell us a bit about the darkness. Tell us a bit about where it all started.
So a quick synopsis of where it all started with some roots internal issues. I think that's one of the things that most people don't like to discuss, is that all of our problems come from inside of us. So when you do the actual work, you find out what your root issue is. That's where you'll notice that the darkness began to take over. For me, one of the main root issues that I had was a feeling of rejection. Stemmed from what I identified at age 2-3 years old on a family situation. Not anything bad or anything crazy. My sister was born, she's 2 years younger than me, and the doctors messed up and they had some health complications. So that forced my parents to spend a lot of time in the hospital, spend a lot of time focused on her. And just like normal families, my grandparents stepped up and said, hey, we're going to take care of Nico. We're going to look after him. So my grandmother came and picked me up from the hospital one day. And for a few months, I'd go spend time with her and then come back, we'd visit. And then a few more months, we'd be gone, traveling in between New Mexico and Arizona, because that's where she was originally from. And within those windows of time that I spent on the road with my grandparents, this idea formulated that I wasn't wanted. It wasn't that I wasn't wanted. The concept of my sister's sick and my family's helping my parents out wasn't comprehended by a 2-year-old. All I saw was that I had to leave, go with the grandparents, and my sister got to stay. And progressively that happened over again. My dad, wanting to make sure that I had some additional experiences, would send me to go stay with his brothers. So at 5, 6 years old to 10 years old, on the summers, I was shipped off to somewhere else, Texas, Georgia, and these ideas would formulate that you're just not wanted. And the idea that was formulated that I wasn't wanted was an internal idea. I didn't have the words to comprehend what I was feeling. All I knew was what I was feeling, and that was rejection. And so that's where the darkness really started for me, was this idea that I wasn't wanted, I wasn't accepted, and I was rejected by the most important people that kids should have, which is your mom and dad. And again, it's not bad, but that's where I identified my root darkness to happen, was because of that. Those events compounded, created this idea that Nico wasn't wanted. And so I did everything that I possibly could to gain acceptance. In my teenage years, it was substances. Prior to that, it was sports. I started wrestling when I was 7 years old, and it was amazing emotion, or amazing time to be able to cause someone else physical pain that I felt internally. There was an emotional transmutation that I could send out to other people by choking them out, slamming them on the ground. And I was getting the validation that I was seeking. I was getting an acceptance for being a good athlete. And so that's where the root of darkness for me started. I would just like to share it real fast, Stephan, that there are 3 other core darkness starters, if you want to call them that science has identified. A gentleman by the name of Dr. Morrison, the one who wrote Wonder Woman and also created the lie detector test here in the United States. He identified 4 of the root issues that most individuals struggle with. First one is being taken advantage of. So those are really good problem solvers. That's one of the ways that they cope. Second one is the issue of rejection. And those are individuals who are great at socializing and engaging with others because they want to participate in social environments. The third one is the fear of change. And those are individuals who learn how to find stability within certain behaviors and certain situations at certain times. They like to stay on those. And then the third one is being wrong. And those are the individuals that absolutely have to be right. So they gather a bunch of data, and they want to make sure that it's always accurate data. And so they'll always be consuming data. Now, those all come with the back end, but those are the 4. So for any listener that's out there that's really wanting to do some self-work, that's a good starting place. Is which one of those 4 did I just describe that really stands out to you? Like, that is who I am.
Blimey. Okay. Where to start there? What a story. I love it. I absolutely love it, because it's not drenched with blood and not severe adverse childhood experiences, which so many people unfortunately have to go through. But your trauma was actually a very benign trauma for all societal intents and purposes. I have never heard it spelled out this way, because ultimately my parents divorced at 4, when I was 4. And prior to that, there was probably a lot of shit going on that I can't remember, just vague things. And I was shipped out to my great-grandmother. So same story there, although I have never recognized it or labeled it as a potential source of being rejected. And it may be that it was not for me. So similar circumstances just show that maybe one person clearly suffers a trauma from something, and whilst exactly the same circumstances leave another person completely unaffected, or maybe that person, in this case me, has not even realized that it played a significant role. So both things are possible. And I think that's, again, let's highlight, trauma is not a pissing contest. Only because you have seen more blood and gore than the other person doesn't mean to say that the suffering is not the same or even reverse. So wonderfully said. Bloody hell. And then, of course, there's all the external validation. First, the sport, which in my case wasn't really sport, but it was the academics. Same thing, I threw myself into that and got the validation from that. And then later on, interesting things happened. How was your relationship with girls?
Oh, I love women. and women love me.
Yeah,
I mean, you
that's
see how pretty I am.
Oh, absolutely. If you share the same haircut, I know
Yeah,
exactly what you're saying.
yeah,
But no,
they're
no,
attracted to it.
was that when you were 13, 14, 15?
No, I actually had my first female encounters when I was 7, 8 years old.
Okay.
Real quick, I would like to just highlight something that was helpful to me, and I believe it can be helpful to any listener out there. I frame trauma, and this isn't, any type of scientific backing on this one, but trauma for me is a expected reality that doesn't meet those expectations. So anything that you expect a certain experience from that you don't get that experience from can create a traumatic thing in your mind. It's the way that you are wanting to experience something. And you could take that idea and apply it to see even some of the most drastic situations, right? But yeah, think about trauma. For me, the way I like to phrase it when I coach people, when I teach people, is that you had an expected experience and that expectation wasn't met. So that's why your brain is registering it as a traumatic event. So I just want to throw that out there because trauma,
I like that. No, I like that.
is something that a lot of people want to discuss without clarifying the definition. And I'm not saying that my definition's right, but that's the definition that I use whenever I speak about trauma. Hopefully that helps somebody. You had asked though, my experience with females. I share this with you. I was in fourth grade. Yeah, fourth grade. Got invited to this birthday party, and there's this place here in Albuquerque, and it was called Planet Fun. At Planet Fun, it was an indoor jungle gym. It was an indoor laser tag. It was indoor ball pits, indoor goat carts. It was the place to be. And we all had birthday parties there and whatnot. There was this this young kid that I befriended, and he really liked my company. I liked his. And so he invited me to his birthday party at Planet Fun. My parents said that, yes, I could go. And they went and dropped me off at Planet Fun. And this guy, he had an older sister, and his sister was about 3 or 4 years older than us, maybe a little bit older than that. So I put her on 11 and 12. And I remember very vividly, I'm playing in the ball pit. I'm playing, having fun just as a normal kid. And all of a sudden she tells me, hey, we got to do something real fast. I need your help. Okay, no problem. I love helping people. I love being wanted. She takes me into this closet and starts to kiss on me, starts to touch me in places that I had never been touched before. And so that was my first experience with the female, was that, when they want you, they're going to come after you. They're going to be very direct about it. And that's where my memory kind of just gets a little bit blurry as to what we did afterwards. But I can remember that it wasn't a comfortable feeling, but it was a comforting feeling, if that makes any type of sense. Like, it was uncomfortable situation, but that someone wanting me was very comforting to me. So that was my first experience with the female. The other big experience that I remember with the female is still in elementary school. One of the girls that was very pretty, popular girls at the time, she said, Nico, you're going to be my boyfriend right now. I'm like, okay. I got no idea what that means. I said, what makes me be your boyfriend? She's like, oh, well, I'm trying to make this guy jealous. And so that's where I framed these ideas of what women wanted from me, right? So these are things that I've had to change and work on my own. But the two ways that I identified women attraction was, one, they're going to use you to make other people jealous. And two, you're going to be used for purely your looks. That was my first kind of encounters with females.
Okay, if that doesn't throw a spanner in the works, I've expected you to answer now, I was a shy dude and alcohol finally allowed me to come out, etc. That's the typical kind of response to that question. But again, there is always more to Nico Morales than meets the eye. But I love it because, again, these are actually two situations that, again, taking simply a look at, this is really neither here nor there in the big societal thing, yet they had a profound impact on you. And you've got nowadays the insight, because you've done all the work, you've got the insight to actually see what these seemingly innocuous, not important things, quotation mark, are actually what they actually caused. Wow. Wow. And but that is actually very comparable with many children of or adult children of alcoholics, who equally have formed belief systems that are very counterproductive. That you can never trust anyone because you don't know if daddy is now today a funny drunk or a nasty drunk. You have to rely on yourself because you never know if there's some dinner there or not, etc. And you better keep your mouth shut. There's all these kind of very dark coping mechanisms that are so purposeful and make a lot of sense in that potentially threatening scenario, but which later become such screwed up core beliefs because you apply them to every situation and you expect people to betray you. You expect people to be negative. So they are the same things playing out here with you. Blimey. Blimey. Okay, but at the moment we are still in the young, good-looking dude who is wrestling and who's getting his external validation from that, which is quite cool. I mean, throwing a few people onto the mat. I've seen worse coping mechanism. Um, how did that continue, that story?
That we would need to fast forward until my teenage years. My teenage years, got sent to a new school. Essentially, here in the States, you have your elementary school, then you have your middle school, and then you have your high school, and they usually all feed into the same high school. Well, I was going to an elementary school and a middle school, but in my high school years, I got transferred over to another school just purely because of where we lived. So in high school, I had to go based off my address. And at that high school, I didn't know anybody, didn't know a single soul. And so this idea of rejection and wanting to be accepted continued to build inside of my head. One of the skill sets that I had was wrestling, and wrestling season was only 4 months out of the year, and it wasn't at the beginning of the year. So sports was how I learned to connect with other individuals. Started off playing American football. Wasn't the best at it, but it was something to do and something to engage with people. But all these football players had already created their own cliques, had already created their own bonds, their own brotherhoods. So to enter into those was difficult. What I did get accepted by was these gentlemen who had their own clique. They were unfortunately gang members. I don't want to say unfortunately. They were gang members. And they saw that Nico was a outsider, and me and the leader, we got along pretty well. We'll call him Manny. And Manny welcomed me with open arms. There was Manny, there was Smalls, and he was this big old dude. And then there was this other guy, and he was just kind of a goofy guy, but we could get him to do whatever we needed to. And I learned that these gentlemen, they like to smoke cigarettes. Well, I had a class with the older classmate, and I asked him one day, hey, will you go buy me a pack of cigarettes? Not because I wanted to smoke, but because I wanted to have acceptance within this newfound group of people. He's like, yeah, no problem. So he goes and buys me these mini cigars, call them Prime Times. And I take them over to the homie Manny. I'm like, here you go, dog. Here's a couple of these Prime Times. I know you like to smoke them. I got you some. And he was like, oh, thanks, Nico. Do you sell them? I was like, now I do. If you're going to buy it from me, then absolutely. And I began to sell loose cigarettes to him and to the friends. And then, they had friends, so they would all come to me to buy loose cigarettes. And I just go send the older homie who was in my automotive class to go buy me more packs of cigarettes. And that's how I kind of got my, one of my identities. So you see, I had two identities in this time frame, this teenage time frame, when you're trying to sort yourself out, when you're trying to find out who you are. Yeah. And one of them was this wannabe gang member, just because I can participate with a group of individuals who accepted me, who wanted me, right? Who said, hey, Nico, come hang out with us. It wasn't that I needed to go and ask them to hang out with them. They were like, come on, come hang out with us. We'll let you hang out. They had their own reasons for it, right? Like, I knew how to talk to girls. Girls wasn't a problem, so I could talk to girls for them. I also had an athletic build. So, if we needed to get into fights, they'd already seen me fight a guy who was a couple grades older than me within the first week that I was there at school. So they understood that Nico has some talents that can be used for our group. And that was the one side of it, right? The other side of it was that I was just waiting for wrestling season because I hated school. I hated going to school. I hated being told what to do. I hated sitting around in the class, and it was dull to me. It wasn't engaging. I'm a kinesthetic learner, so I need to do things, and sitting there and hearing somebody teach a lecture, then writing notes, that wasn't beneficial to my learning style. And so the only reason I went to school was for sports. And when wrestling season came around, I went to wrestle. And that was how I made my identity. Like, yo, wrestling season here, I'm not doing anything dumb, because this is my way out. This is how I get validation. And by this time, I'd already been told, Nico, you're a decent wrestler, and you could find a path in wrestling if you would really apply yourself to it. And so that's what I just began to do. This is formative years. So about 14 to 17, I was going back and forth between selling, at this point, loose cigarettes and cannabis, to wrestling. Those are the two things that I just did to stay engaged, to stay associated, to kind of feel that need that you were asking about.
Wow. Cool. And you clearly were successful. You clearly have got street smarts there. You clearly had a lot of opportunities, but it's interesting how your core beliefs led you down these two garden paths. Very intriguing, very intriguing. But what happened then afterwards? I mean, we are talking 3 years, high school. What happened thereafter? I mean, you just created these new identities, and then suddenly change was just waiting around the corner. What now?
Absolutely. And one of the biggest changes that I had was I got kicked out of that school because I was affiliated with gang members. So they wanted to disband our group for, reasons that's understandable from an administrative standpoint. So I got kicked out of that school, went to another school. Still, wrestling was my identity, but I also learned, hey, well, if these guys like substances, then there's got to be other people that like substances at this other school. And so that two identities continued to build until I was 17. And when I was 17, I had earned a full ride wrestling scholarship because I was pretty decent at it. Cool. And was going to be the first one in my family to have an athletic scholarship, full ride. And everybody was proud. Everybody was excited, except for Nico, because I had this new wrestling coach and I hated being told what to do. And he always seemed to want to tell me what to do. Boiling point that we had was that he was a brand new coach. I was in my senior year. I was set up to take state championship. The guy above my weight class, he was my good buddy. We used to practice together. The guy below my weight class, he was a good buddy. We used to practice together. All three of us were projected to be the state champs that year in our respective weight classes. This new wrestling coach comes and tells me that I need to change my whole wrestling style. I need to change my approach to wrestling. I need to make a bunch of different changes in order to accomplish this, whatever he wanted me to accomplish. Yeah. In my head, I was like, I already have a full ride wrestling scholarship without even winning state. So I'm good to go. I don't need to listen to you. You just need to let me do what I'm doing here. Why don't you go focus on the young kids? And so we butt heads because naturally I'm a born leader. I have these skills and these tendencies where I can walk into a room and the room will change. Depending on how I'm feeling, that room will change. Depending on my thought processes, that room will change. And they identified that. And just like any other environment, his thought process, well, if I take out Nico, then all the other ones will fall, right? You knock out the big domino and everything else falls into place. Well, I wasn't going to let him win and I wasn't going to break. So I quit wrestling. I said, I'm done. I'm not going to wrestle anymore. I'm not going to participate in this sport anymore. Gave the big old bird to the man, as I called it, and I left. And the only identity that I had left at this point was selling drugs and working, because I had been working since age 14 on construction sites. So I had ways of earning money. I've been working actually since I was 10 underneath the table. But when I was 14, I started working for a construction company. And yeah, so I had ways of earning money. I thought I solved all world's problems. I knew how to approach the world, right? Normal teenager stuff. And I embedded that identity. That, to answer your question, after high school, that's the identity that I chose to walk in, was that I was going to sell drugs. And so I went full on into drug dealing. Timing on that was kind of perfect if we're talking about a perfect storm, because there was new drugs into the market, right? It no longer was just cannabis and cocaine. It was pills. So Xanax.
Yeah.
Oxy came into the game,
isn't it? Yeah.
yes, sir, you got it. Hydrocodone, oxycodone, Adderall, all of the pills started to flood the drug market. And you didn't have to go to a scary drug dealer anymore. You didn't have to go to the guy that everybody knew was selling drugs. You could go to your friend's mom who just needs a couple extra $100. You could go to everybody's grandparents who just needed a couple extra $100. And to them, $100, $200 for their bottle of pills that they didn't even like was astronomical. For me, I'm like, yeah, that's cheap. I get 100 pills for $200, $10 a pop. I'm gonna go sell them for $60 each. Do the math, make me a significant profit right there. And that's what I began to do. Unfortunately, though, by the time I'm 20 years old, 21, I began to use the drugs more than I was selling the drugs. Biggie Smalls, famous rapper, has the 10 crack commandments. And one of them is number 4, you never get high on your own supply. Well, I decided to get high on my own supply, mainly because I hadn't dealt with my root issues, right? I was still this insecure young man who had no validation other than external validation. I had no identity because the identity that I truly wanted to be an athletic superstar was stripped from me, so-called, in my head, right? That victim mindset that because someone else's actions caused me to quit wrestling, I took action. So it was stripped from me. So I was approaching this world as if it owed me something rather than I owed the world something.
Oh, yeah.
And because of that, I absorbed that identity of drug user. And so at 22, I started to use black tar heroin because the pills began to change the format in their pressing and their making. The whole epidemic there caused the government to make changes to the biggest drug dealers out there. I'm going to tell you right now, the biggest drug dealers in America, they're not the ones in jail. They're not the Mexican cartels. They are the pharmaceutical families that are fairly well known, and they've never done a day in jail. They've never done anything other than pay some fines. And they just transformed the way they press drugs. So by 22, I was strung out on heroin, IV injecting it, selling heroin, robbing people, full-blown drug addict by that point. And so that's what happened after school. Gave up a full ride wrestling scholarship, stopped going to school, started working and selling drugs and just acting a fool, basically.
What did the heroin give you when you took it? What sensations did you experience? Was it simply an escape, or did it provide you with a different identity? Can you remember?
Absolutely. The heroin addict identity was a victim identity. The world has done me dirty, so now I'm going to do dirty things to myself, right? It's because of the world's fault that I have to do these things. It's everybody else's fault but me. And that's what the heroin addicts that I was around, that's what most drug addicts are thinking. It's everybody else's fault, and that's why I'm doing this. And so it gave me a community of individuals who were victimizing themselves. And my root issue was wanting to be accepted. So there was my community that I needed. And what I will say is, like, physiologically, I'm cautioning you, don't go do heroin because it's not a good drug. But it was like jumping into a pool of fuzzy teddy bears and escaping. So there was this physiological comfort. My body just overwhelmingly euphoric. And then my brain was shut down. And that's what I love the most. Those two things combined, my brain shutting down. I didn't have to think all these thoughts that were going through my head. If you haven't picked up on it, I'm a very fast-paced individual. I move from one thought to the next. And when I was younger, those thoughts would just come all the time. And I didn't know how to process them because I didn't understand how to process thoughts and I know that I wasn't all my thoughts. Then shutting it down was the most helpful thing. So that's what heroin did for me.
So understandable, man. I can just literally feel it, that peace that was coming over you. And again, people think, my God, you're destroying your life. Why can't you stop? Well, if you are feeling in a certain way, rightly or wrongly so, because you're labeling it the victim mindset. Rightly or wrongly so, you are feeling that, and that feeling is very, very real for you. So therefore, for you, that is a pain, and you want to have literally a pain relief here. Heroin is the group of an opiate, is in the group of opiates, and it is literally a pain reliever. It can be used actually very beneficial for pain relief in some parts of the world. Having said that, it also relieves the pain that is in our soul, the pain that is in our subconscious. And that's exactly why it has been such a wave of such a pandemic of oxycodone pills, that the whole thing around about 2000 and when did it start? In
2007, 2008.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. I would have said the same thing. And that's the whole thing keeps going, and especially nowadays, things have changed with 2014, with suddenly fentanyl and carfentanil, etc., coming onto the scene. Now we have got completely different players, from the Chinese government to Mexican cartels, which are flooding the market. But prior to that, it was, as you say, a little old lady which kept one pill for her and one for the little man at the end of the street. And suddenly there was all this beautiful soul painkiller available. And yeah, it's good to put it into perspective, because there is this kind of attitude in some people. Just don't do it, Nancy Reagan, 80s style. Bullshit, because there's a good reason that people fall into the trap of drugs, of alcohol, of gambling, of sex, of eating, etc. Um, Here you are in the middle of it. Bloody hell. How far were the cops away from you? Because such a story typically doesn't end too well.
My interactions with the police were very inconsistent. Let's see.
Oh.
We got pulled over once, and I had a bottle of 100 pills with me. And at that time, it was 10 years per pill. So we would have been facing at least 1,000 years when we got pulled over. So that was a interesting, really showed that I had charisma. That's when I understood that my skill and my gift was communication. That's when I understood, like, hey, Nico, you can get away with a lot of things because of the way that you communicate, the way that you carry yourself, and the way that you present yourself. You can get away with a lot of things. I had an instance with the police after I did an armed robbery, and that one we had lawyers. I was always taught, Nico, you're not. It's not a matter of if you get caught; it's a matter of when you get caught. So prepare for when you get caught. Like that's the way I was taught. I was taught from drug dealers. I was taught from people who lived the lifestyle, that they knew that it wasn't a matter of if these things happen to us. It's a matter of when these things happen to us. Here's how we get out of them. And there's that. Me and the police. Yeah.
Okay. Bloody hell, man. Okay, so how beautiful is that? That you actually admit to that, because here you are. There is, whilst on the one hand you have got the victim victimhood, the walling in your, how do you call it, to love the pity party, and use that as a reason for you to take medicines and maybe other, inject heroin in your case. Yet at the same token, you can put that other persona up there. And that persona, I think, is actually part of you. You are calling yourself a leader. And I think you are. No two ways around that. You certainly have charisma. But there's also a bit of a narcissistic trait there. There is also a bit of traits that other people might frown upon, but that make you a good leader, that made you that person. So it's intriguing that you have identified that, and that you're accepting it, because that is part and parcel of it. You can be full of shame and guilt about certain traits that run in you and that are coming natural to you, or you can say, well, okay, this is a dude who lives in me who maybe I need to be just a little bit more aware of and make sure that he doesn't run the show. Otherwise, he's a wrecking ball. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, that's fair to say. There's two things that come to mind when you speak. You just brought that up. One is that most individuals don't know the definition of humble. Everybody thinks humble is this closed shoulder, closed chest, be quiet type individual.
No.
It's absolutely not what humble means.
No.
Humble comes from the Latin word humus, Humus, and that word actually means dirt. So we are made in a specific, for me, I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. So I believe that I am made in a specific way, right? With specific traits to accomplish certain things on this planet. Being humble means that I'm using each one of those traits to accomplish those things. For me, being an outspoken individual, a leader, somebody who believes that I am number one at everything that I do, that's being humble to me. It's awkward to be like, no, I'm not the best. No, I am the best. All right. You know, I was the best damn wrestler at that weight class and everybody knew it. That's why there wasn't an issue. That's why the coach wanted to take me out. I was the best damn drug dealer that I could be at the time because I figured out ways to move products that were just brand new to a market in a massive amount. I figured out ways to trade products with other individuals. So I didn't even have to come out of pocket cash. I was a good dope dealer. And guess what? I was the best drug addict too. I was the best drug addict out there. I was the wonderful drug addict, right? I still kept the job. I didn't have to go ahead and rob people until I was totally desperate. So yes, I believe I am the best. That is who I was created to be the best. And that's why right now I'm the best speaker in the world. That's how I view myself. I communicate at such a high level that there's very few individuals that can miss the concepts that I go ahead and communicate, right? Whether you are a theologian, whether you are a scholar or whether you are a layman, I can communicate the same topic to all three of those individuals in a way that they will understand, which makes me the best communicator out there. All to say that for me, that's what being humble means. I am going to live in this dirt that I was created to live in.
Now that's an intriguing way how to phrase it and how to reframe the whole subject. But I'll take it. I'll take it, man. There is nothing wrong about it, and you're actually turning your mess into a message. You're actually using all the tools all the skills that you created over a lifetime, over a very interesting lifetime, and are now using it for good, including your charisma, including your strong beliefs, including the realization that there were some really warped and really fucked up core beliefs lying underneath that whole thing. But that is so beautiful to see, because here you're basically a man who has transformed. But trauma comes in layers. We've seen that in your story. Healing also comes in layers, because I know that initially you actually got your shit together. You came off the heroin. How did you do that?
Did it the same way that I started heroin. Little by little, I started to reduce the amount that I was using. So cool. I would start by like, hey, I knew the amount that I needed to stay well without feeling the withdrawals. That was 60 cc's through a 33 gauge needle every 2 hours. That's what I knew I needed to do. Came to the point though that let me take that back. I didn't come off of it. I tapered myself off of it when we're talking like the use of it. That's what I did. I tapered myself off. But I came to this realization that I didn't know everything. And that's where I found true freedom. Like, I didn't know why I was around. I didn't know why I lived and other people around me had died. I didn't understand how I could use 4 or 5, 6 Oxy 80s in a day and somebody was dying off of smoking 1. Like, I didn't know that. I just thought it was because I was better than them, right? I could do drugs better than them. The reality is I didn't know, and I had no idea. And so I come to this place after one of my good friends at the time, his brother died, overdosed. At the time, that's what everybody wanted to deny, but that's what happened. And it was off of a small amount, a very small amount. It was his first time using, and this realization, like, there's got to be a reason why I'm still around. And so I started to explore spirituality at that point. And I said, well, if there is a God out there, then take this pain away from me. And I was at a point where the amount of drugs that I was using wasn't that much. It was just enough to stay well. Like I said, it wasn't enough to get high. It was enough to not feel withdrawals. And I said, you know what, if you're real, we have those conversations, some of us, if you're real, then do this for me. And he did it. And I was set free from this substance, this dependency. It was this, I don't need to use that anymore. And so that's how I kicked heroin, was first tapering down to the bare minimum that I could take just to not hurt, not feel withdrawals, because heroin withdrawals make you feel like you're going to die. They make you feel like you're going to die. You don't actually die from them. Alcohol withdrawals almost killed me, but heroin withdrawals, they made me feel like I was going to die. And I reached out to the higher power and I said, you know what? What is this? What is this thing called life? Why am I still here? If you will show me what it is, and I will do it, because I need to be right in this situation. I can't be wrong. I can't be hurting. And I've done everything. I've had multiple women in my bed. I've sold tons of drugs. I've had thousands of dollars in my dressers. I've done all of the things that you can really do in this realm, and none of it makes me happy. So what is it that you have that possibly can make me feel at peace and feel happy?
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And that gave you the power and let you down to a degree of healing, because you were able to get off the opiates. But then again, you've already alluded to the powerful, beautiful topic of cross addiction, because whilst you have actually worked with some of the demons and put some of them into their cages, there are other demons still at bay, because only because you've stopped with the illegal drugs, now you've got this beautiful legal thing that you don't even need to worry about. You don't even need to hide it in the same way that you did with your other drugs. So what was your affair with alcohol like?
That dance was slow and it was rhythmic, and she found her way to take over and be that monkey on Nico's back. So I stopped using heroin when I was 22 years old. This is 2012. My friends and my family members, they started to accept me again. And I want to add something else on there. It's not just legal, but it's accepted and it's used as a rite of passage. Alcohol is used as a rite of passage in our communities, and it shouldn't be. So when I stopped using drugs, everybody's like, all right, cool, Nico, here's a beer. Come join us. Let's go out. Let's have a fun time. All right, no problem. I didn't see it as an issue, right? Because I didn't see that there was a chemical attraction that I have. Even now, like if I drink soda for a couple of times, I'm going to drink 3 liters of soda in a day, because that's who I am. That's how my brain works. If I eat candy, I'm going to eat the whole bag of candy, because that's how my brain works. Like there's an actual chemical thing that happens inside of my mind that says, this feels good, more would feel better. Exactly. This feels good, more would feel better. This feels good, more would feel better. Until it doesn't feel better, and then I'm sick, and I'm like, oh, why did I drink 3 liters of soda? Why did I eat the whole bag of candy? Like my stomach hurts. I'm sitting on the toilet, like I understand that about myself, but my community, the individuals that I wanted to be accepted by, the friends who had said, Nico, we can't hang out with you because you're a drug addict. The family who had kicked me out, both my parents kicked me out of their houses. I was staying on the streets, running amok, jumping from couch to couch. Those ones had accepted me back, and they said, just don't do drugs, but here, have a drink. Don't do drugs, but here, take a shot with us. Don't do drugs, but here, crack open a beer. Let's grill. And by the time I'm 24, I find myself no longer socially drinking. I find myself going to the store at 7 a.m, buying a bottle, pouring it into my cup, drinking that before I shower so I could shower, feel happy as can be, and go lucky, and yay, life is good. Going to work, and on my work break, going to get a couple shooters and drinking. So by the time I'm 24, 25 years old, I find myself repeating these exact same behaviors that I had with the illegal substance with now the legal substance. And what's even worse is that I didn't have to hit up a dope dealer. All I had to do was go down to the corner store, because where I'm from, they sell it at every gas station. We don't have to go to liquor stores. You can go to the gas station and you could get a bottle right there. Like I would say, hey, I'm going to the gas station to pump some gas. I'm gonna go to the gas station and get a bag of chips. By the time I got to the gas station, got my drink, I'd down half of it, come back and be eating a bag of chips, making it look as if I did exactly what I said I did. Plus the other side of it is there's an adrenaline rush that I still desired, right? Drug dealing gave me an adrenaline rush. It wasn't so much about the money. I knew how to make money legally. I knew how to hold a job. It was excess money, which was great, but there's an adrenaline rush about doing something that's bad, not getting caught. That's why most people cheat, right? That's why most people look at pornography. That's why most people participate in these behaviors, because there is also not just a dopamine hit that you get, but there is a dark side to it that we are attracted to as human beings. Yep. In America, everybody wants to be a gangster, man. Al Capone, yeah, Scarface. Like I can name off some Mexican dudes that I know too. And everybody wants to be a gangster. And what do gangsters do? They do what the dark things are, right? They see how much of it they can get away with. And so I had to still feel that need. And that was the other thing that alcohol brought to me. How much can I drink before we go into the club? How many girls can I pick up on my own when I'm drunk off my ass? Like that whole adrenaline rush of how long can I hide it? So by the time I'm 27, I literally find myself in a building that only has electricity. My family's no longer talking to me. My friends are no longer talking to me again because Nico's a full-blown alcoholic. And I'm holding a job. Like I'm showering at the gym after I work out. I'm making life somewhat look like life is life, but I'm hurting on the inside, broken on the inside, wanting to feel accepted, wanting to feel wanted. And I just don't know why people won't accept me the way that I know how to solve my problems. Because at the end of the day, that's what they were. They were solutions to my problems that I had internally. And I wasn't a man enough to deal with my internal issues. I wasn't strong enough to handle internally validating myself. I was still too weak. And so that's why I needed to escape. That's why I needed to throw on the mask. That's why I needed to drink. And my excuse was, it's legal.
Very nicely said. And a very good nuance there, that little adrenaline rush that you get in an otherwise potentially boring life, or being on the treadmill of life, your hamster wheel. Interesting. Again, this is a lovely insight there, because it's one of the nuances that sometimes people keep forgetting. That there are that even behaviors that seemingly are so screwed up, that they provide you with something. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. Okay, so that's good, and it's good that we highlight that, because then only once you can name it, then you can tame it. You can actually then maybe substitute that adrenaline rush with a real adrenaline rush that you're doing. That maybe you start rock climbing or whatever it is. There are very productive and cool ways how to substitute the need for that particular rush, whatever that is. And that's so beautiful. Wow, man, Nico, here you are. So, but yeah, at the moment you're in a dark spot, literally a dark spot. You're alone. Victim role? Were you again in the middle of the pity party? Was your addicted mind able to construct such a beautiful scenario where you could blame others for the fact that you were now drunk?
Absolutely. People hadn't seen what I had seen. People hadn't lived the life that I had lived. People didn't know what it was like to have to be the survivor's remorse. And that's what I used as my excuse.
Good.
You guys don't understand. You can't comprehend what it was like. I was thinking I was so special that nobody else had the same emotions that I had. Like, you're not. I'm sorry. If you think you're that special, you're not. I'm going to tell you right now, all of us feel those emotions. You're just too much of a weakling to actually feel your emotions, and we're not. That's what it boils down to. And at the time, I was a weakling there too. That's why I have no problem in calling people that, because I've been in that place. Yeah. Sometimes I have to use more vulgar terms, and you know what? I just call it what it is because I've been there, and I didn't have somebody that was willing to call me out. One of my biggest struggles with human beings is that there's an issue with someone else that they claim to love and they don't speak up. One of my best friends, I haven't talked to him in 10 years and I still call him a best friend. He told me, Nico, I can't be around you. You're messing up. You're not meeting the standards of friendship of the people that I will allow myself around. I love you, but you can't be around me anymore. Best thing I've ever heard. But even that statement I used to use as my escape method. I had an individual who I thought we were really close friends. I used to talk to him every day when he was in the military. And as soon as I told him that I was using heroin, he stopped calling me. So I'd use that as an excuse. You know what? These are individuals who I have a little bit more respect for because they have standards, they have qualities that their people around them must meet. And if you're not meeting them, then they won't let you around. And I respect that. I still don't talk to them. I don't engage with them because I'm a completely different individual than, they once knew. And relationships come for reasons. They come for seasons or they come for lifetimes. And that was a reason that I had a relationship with them. Wasn't supposed to be for a lifetime. And so the victim mindset was very much there. That victim mindset of, oh, no one knows. No one knows what I've been through. Shut your mouth. You know what? There's people who have done worse than you. Like I say that I was big and bad, right? But then I know some of the guys who I was scared of who would actually move metric tons worth of heroin into the United States. Like that's drug dealing to me, not this couple ounces, 4 ounces a week, 300, 500 pills a week. Like that ain't drug dealing. You're a street dealer. Shut up. Like, so the dudes who I knew who were moving massive amounts, truckloads of heroin, truckloads of cocaine, truckloads of cannabis into the United States, that's true drug dealing. And guess what? They had to answer to someone too. So there's always someone bigger. There's always someone better. There's always someone better. Get over yourself. And that's how I had to speak to myself because I didn't have somebody that was willing to say that to me. That's why for me, it's such a big passion. I get so passionate about helping individuals because I know that I needed that so bad. I needed that one individual who was willing to show me that true love. And true love isn't lying to you. True love is spending some time with you and saying, here, look, this is where you're messing up. Here's how I can help you out. Now the ball's in your court. What are you going to do? And people, we don't have that. Men nowadays don't have communities like that. Back in the day when you had less ways to escape, i.e. the internet, you couldn't spout off at the mouth without getting punched in the mouth. Like you couldn't, people wouldn't let you play as much of a victim as we let people play nowadays because there's so many ways to escape and get away from these communities. That's what it boils down to.
Nice. And the opposite to addiction is connection, after all. So now you've nailed it, man. You've nailed it, brother. Oh. But it's so easy with this victim mindset. I was in that. I mean, I was very, very resentful of a certain organization, amongst many other things. And I was so focused on that victim mindset. And my counselor in the rehab, she made me read a book. And that book was Rise Above. And I can't find it anymore. I think it's taken off the market. But it describes the story of a woman who is married. And within the first 10, 15 pages, she comes home on a Saturday morning from shopping, where her estranged husband begins to, in the driveway, kill her father and then her children in the most brutal way. And I thought, when I read that, I thought, no. And suddenly I realized, hey, my story has nothing. And there was this comparison. It was this contest. Whose story is worse? And it was so bizarre. And it's still, I can't wrap my head around this kind of living in this victim role. But it was so dominant at one stage in my life. And nowadays, still, shit happens. We need to be very, very clear. The shit will happen to all of us. But it is our choice, our privilege to actually to say, okay, yes, shit has happened, but now what are we doing about it? Are we really the victims, or are we actually the people out there who can kick ass? Wow. Nico, you're an amazing dude. I could talk to you for hours. And we two are, there are very similar, a great deal of similarities, and there's so much I can learn from you, no two ways around that. and certainly the same for all my listeners and viewers out there. Nico, if people want to know more about you, if people want to get in touch with you, where can they do that?
Two ways to do that. If you have social medias, Instagram is the best and most frequent. That's at NoHaloNM. That's it, at NoHalo. I don't believe I'm supposed to be perfect. It's okay to have no halo. So at NoHaloNM, Nico Morales. The other one is nohalonm.com. If you don't have social media, I understand that. nohalonm.com. You can shoot me a message. You can apply to work with me because I don't work with everybody. I don't like talking to everybody. You have to be in a specific place for me to engage. Now, don't get me wrong. I'll sit down and talk with anybody, but actually working with people, we gotta fine tune some things. Let's put it that way before I don't want to shock anybody. But yes, if you'd like to engage, if you'd like to have a conversation, if you'd like to just follow along with this antics that I like to spout out of my mouth sometimes, at NoHaloNM on all social medias, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and then the website is nohalonm.com.
Nico, you're an amazing man. Guys, look down there into the description of the YouTube video and of the podcast because all of Nico's information is down there. Whilst you're down there, please press the like and the subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down there. What was the coolest thing or what was the aha moment of when you listened here to this interview? Nico, wow. Knowing that we all are on a path, I can't wait to talk to you again in a year or 2 years' time and see who you have become by then. Do you know who you want to be when you grow up? Nico, you're going out there. You will leave a legacy. There's no two ways around that.
Yeah, I would like to be the top speaker in the world. That's one of my goals, to be able to speak from stages and cultivate an environment and a community of individuals who know how to set standards and also be servants. That's the two goals that I have. I want to set the standards for individuals on what a man is supposed to be like, and I want to be a servant to my community.
Beautiful. Wow, Nico, it was an honor to have you on my show. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephan.
And you guys out there, look after yourself and live with passion. Bye.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.